Okay. So let me summarize what we've been doing last few classes. So in the last few classes, we have started discussing regarding unsupervised learning, and we saw that unsupervised learning is basically when we don't have a target class, and thus the data as such cannot truly say cannot truly be uh, used to experiment or to learn if we are uh, uh, if we are learning what do you say an understanding of the system function. Okay, so basically we cannot have a supervised algorithm, right? Because we do not have a class, or we don't know the true label of something. In that sense, uh, we have to do the best that we can with the data that we have. Okay, so there are many things that people can do with unsupervised learning. That is, many things people can do without having the target class. One major thing that they can do is clustering, that we try to group items together. Okay, and this grouping is done basically based on the final distance, either conceptual or numerical distance between the data points. Okay, so uh, within that, we saw that for this clustering, there are multiple approaches. Two major approaches are exclusive clustering and agglomerative clustering. So exclusive clustering is clustering where each data item belongs to only one class. That is exclusive clustering. And agglomerative clustering uh, is where each data item actually belongs to multiple sets of classes which are divided into different hierarchies. Okay, and these hierarchies, they reveal the relationship between the data points and amongst each other, and also helps us to group things at different levels together. Okay, within exclusive clustering, we have a method called as k-means algorithm, which I hope to explore creating from scratch today and verifying how it works and what are the essence behind it. And the other approach is to have hierarchical clustering, which says that all data points, they belong to individual clusters, and over multiple iterations we start to merge those clusters which are closest to each other, and thereby additionally we create something called as a dendrogram, and the dendrogram helps us to further divide data into clusters. Okay. So I think that is what we have been doing the last few classes. Today we will see how to implement k-means from scratch, and the hope is not that we will be using it this way, but the hope is that we will actually understand how clustering algorithms work in terms of the maths that goes behind it, so that we have better intuition of using it in the future. Okay, so that is the scope for today. uh, do you have any questions before we start actually implementing it?
I have a weird question.
Mhm.
Actually, when we see this unsupervised learning, it is similar to our classification algorithm in supervised area. Like K means K nearest neighbor we have there.
Mhm.
This program looks like what was that name? What we studied second in regression learning. It is also
Decision trees. Okay.
so why it's still look come similar. It's a when I read, I just felt like that. That's
Mhm.
why I asked.
You see, the key difference is when we do things in unsupervised learning, we don't know. We don't know for sure if what we're coming as output is a right output or not. Like because we don't have a sense of knowing if this data belongs to the target label or not. We are assuming it belongs based on the distance and so on, but there is no truth value check, which happens in supervised learning.
I know. Instead of this K means we can take the same K nearest neighbor algorithm and N will be a issue. but still it to some level it is same, right?
No, see, let's say you take your 10, you take your 10 closest neighbors, okay? And then in K and N, we say, what are the classes of these neighbors, so that we'll take the mode and then we'll apply it to the new data point also. But in unsupervised, we don't know what the classes of the labels are because we don't have labels, right?
Yeah.
So that is where the key difference arises between any supervised and unsupervised. Okay, so within all of the supervised methods, we'll be using the target label to learn the underlying system of the input relation with the output relation. We will learn that using the target label. For unsupervised, we don't have the target label.
Yeah.
Right, so hence it is called as unsupervised. So what we are doing is we are hoping that if the data is close to each other, then they must be belonging to the same cluster, or they must be belonging to the same set of rules. And with that assumption, we go ahead and we say that, okay, let's see. But supervised learning, we are not assuming. We know for a fact that target label, what is a target label, and then we are trying to learn things.
Yeah, clear.
Clear, right? Okay. So with that, let us see some code so that we can see how to implement things. So I'm calling from scikit-learn's package, the dataset module. I'm calling a function called as make blobs. This will help us to make some artificial data that we can play around with safely without actually we can play around safely. So, and we can generate some more things. We can see how KNN work, k-means works, and so on. We call NumPy, of course, Seaborn, Matplotlib, and we say Matplotlib to plot things in the same Jupyter output. Okay, so we call this. Then we call the method makeBlobs, and these are the inputs that are required by makeBlobs. The first is we have to say how many samples. So we're saying, okay, I want data with 1,000 samples, and these are the centers according to which I want to divide the data for these many features, and a random state so that this code is reproducible. That is, next time I run the code, I need the same answers. So the centers here are what it will be using as cluster centers to divide the data into 3 parts. So these 1,000 points will be divided into 3 parts with roughly 333 belonging to this cluster, belonging to this cluster, and this cluster, and so on. It also says that for the data that we are getting, each data point should have only 2 features. Okay. So thus, if I execute this, can you tell me what will be the size of the variable x, or the shape of the variable x? How many rows and how many columns?
Not getting.
Okay. You did not get my question, or don't know how to answer?
I didn't get the answer. I don't know the answer.
Okay. But you understood the question, right? What
Yeah.
makeBlobs is creating artificial data of 1,000 points, 2 features, divided into 3 groups. Okay. So that tells us what should be the size of x. So we should have 1.
1,000 will be the x.
Yes, 1,000 rows in x. How many columns? 2 columns, because 2 features, right? Okay. And finally, so x will be basically have a shape. Let me execute this, and I'll write x dot shape. There's 1,000 rows and 2 columns. That is what we told it to do. Create 1,000 rows with 2 features, and then we have a variable called as y. We should have again 1,000 values, and these 1,000 values will take the numbers 0, 1, and 2. That will be because of the 3 cluster centers that we are dividing it into. Okay. So if I take, let's say, the first 5 examples of x, I can see that x has multiple rows, 1,000 rows actually. I'm just taking the first first 5 plots, and at the same time I can see the first 5 answers of y. And Y says that the first data point belongs to a cluster 0. We can see that this data point, since we are having three clusters, one is close to 0, 0, one is close to 5. So 0, 0 means 0 on the x. I can assume the first unit, the first input to be the x-axis coordinate, the second input to be the y-axis coordinate. So if it is close to 0, 0, this would be, we could say that this belongs to cluster 0. This could be cluster 1, and close to this one would be cluster 2. So we can see that this belongs to cluster 0, cluster 1, cluster 1, this belongs to cluster 0, this belongs to cluster 2. Okay. The same, we are verifying the same using Y. Now, generally, within an unsupervised learning problem, we will not have access to the variable Y because we don't know the label. So we have to just use part 1 to understand what is a cluster or not. But since we are using artificial data, we can use Y also to verify if our code is doing right. Let me plot this data and show you how this looks like. So if I look at this, I create a figure of size 10 units on the X, 5 units on the Y, and we use SNS.scatterplot. And for the X coordinates, we are passing all rows and column 0. And for the Y coordinate, we are passing all rows and column 1. And as we see the data, we can see that we have 3 blobs of data. One set of blobs has a center of 0, 0. That is what we have provided. The other has a center of 5, 5. And this is 5 minus 5. Okay. Now we cannot say that to be honest with our k-means algorithm, we cannot automatically first only define this into 3 labels and use that for training. We should hope that k-means will be able to find these clusters without knowing what belongs to what. Since we know the answer, we can verify if it is doing right or not. We hope that it finds 3 clusters. We call that 0, 1, 2, or it could be 0, 1, 2 or anything. But it should know that there are 3 clusters and roughly get the same data points. And that is our hope. Once we are able to verify that, then we can try to take these clusters together and see what happens for k-means and what does it do at that point. Okay. So let's look at our k-means algorithm. So our k-means algorithm here, I have noted down the main steps. The main steps are pick the number of clusters. So for k-means, we have to start by telling what are the number of clusters we want. So we'll say, okay, pick the number of clusters. Let's call this number k. Second step is randomly pick k observations as initial centroids. So let's say in this case, we have 3 clusters. We'll randomly pick 3 points and we call them the initial centroids. Now assign each observation based on the nearest centroid that is computed by Euclidean distance. Okay, so we'll find out the distance of each of the data points from each of the centroids, and whichever has the closest value, that is whichever has the least distance, we will assign that data point to that centroid, thereby assigning some label. Okay, so that is step 3. Step 4, now that we have the points belonging to a cluster, we will use those cluster points to create or to find out the centroid. Okay. Once we have the centroid, we will the new centroid. Once we have the new centroid, we will repeat step 3 and 4, 3 and 4 till the time our system does not converge. Okay. What do we call as convergence? We call convergence when our centroid does not move anymore. Okay. When the centroid stays at the same point, we'll say, okay, our model has converged, and then we will say that, okay, these are our final clusters. Okay. So that is our k-means algorithm. Keeping this in mind, we will implement one step at a time. Step 1, pick the number of clusters. So let us be a bit easy on our data, and we will say that since we know there are 3 clusters in the beginning, we also say that our k-means also will come up with 3 clusters. So we say k is equal to 3. Then now we randomly pick k observations as initial centroids. So we know that there are 1000 points. So 1000 points have rows going from 0 to 999. So we will use that to get 3 random integers in the range from 0 to 999. So we say we'll use np.random.random. We say low number is 0, high number is 1000. So high number 1000 means it cannot use 1000. It has to go one less. So it will go with the high number of, or a high included value of 999, and size k because we want 3 numbers. That gives us O. When I just print O, we say, okay, these are the 3 numbers that we have randomly chosen. Let us say that these 3 numbers are the centroids also. So I take a variable called as C, say that C is the centroid, and from this X, I take these 3 numbers, that is O. X of O will give me the 3 centroids, okay? And I want to see what it has chosen. So these are the 3 centroids it has chosen. One belongs to the first blob, this, and both the others belong to the same blob, okay? That is the kind of centroid we have chosen. So we have chosen 3 random numbers. One belongs here, and then both the other 2 belong here. So that is step 2, randomly pick k observations as initial centroids. Step 3, assign each observation based on the nearest centroid computed by Euclidean distance. Okay. So basically, for each observation, we have to find the distance from the 3 centroids and assign the cluster to the closest one. So I create a function called as distance, something similar we had done for KNN algorithm. And here it is very simple. We say that, okay, for each of the data points, find the distance from each of the, so this calls on one data at a point, is it? Okay, one data at a time. Now this is not just a single value. Here, both these values are having two features because we are talking about a 2-dimensional problem. But had this been an n-dimensional problem also, the formula would have stayed same. Okay, so this formula uses vectorization. So if I do x minus xe, that will give me the difference between 2 data points. The square will give me the square of the error. I'll sum it up and then take its square root. So we'll get the root mean square error. Sorry, root square error, not mean, because we are not dividing by the number of points. But when we do this, basically we are using the distance formula to find what is the distance between 2 points having the same dimensions. So we call this distance function. Then we say, let me create a matrix D, an empty matrix D with size of 1000 rows and 3 columns. The 1000 rows will represent the distance of each of the data points, and 3 columns, k columns, saying what is the distance between that point and centroid 1, that point and centroid 2, that point and centroid 3. Okay, that is the aim, and we run it for all the data points. We run it for all the class that we have. Okay, so all the centroids that we have for centroid 0, 1, and 2. So when we do that, we end up with the distance matrix. Let me show you what the distance matrix looks like. So we have this as the distance matrix, which has 1000 rows and 3 columns. So let me look at the first data point. The first data point is 1.3 units away from centroid 0, 7.9 units away from centroid 2, and 9.44 from centroid 3. Okay, so we know that we are going for the closest value. Let me go for closest. We're going for the closest value. So this data point 1, will belong to cluster 0. Okay. This data point also cluster 0. This data point cluster 0. Okay, so all 3 will go to cluster 0. What about next last 3? So this will go to cluster 0, cluster 0, cluster 0. In this case, somehow all the 6 data points go to cluster 0. Let me do this part where I run y. And if I execute, we can see that first 3 go to cluster 0, last 3 also go to cluster 0, and in between we have different numbers depending upon which of these 3 are the minimum values. Okay, so if we have if we have a minimum value of these 3, if we have a minimum value in the first at index 0 location, we'll say cluster 0. Index 1 location, we'll say cluster 1, and index 2 location, we'll say cluster 2. And like this, we see that somehow it has divided the data. Let us go ahead. So that is step 2. Okay, assign each observation based on nearest centroid computed by Euclidean distance. Now sorry, this was step 3. Step 4 is now that we have a y, which is basically, this is not the true y, this is the y that we are assuming to be true within the different steps of our algorithm. We say now that we have this y, we will use this y to create a centroid, to create or move a new centroid based on the assignment that we have done. Okay, so the formula for centroid is fairly simple. If I have 3 points A, B, C with points x1, y1, x2, y2, x3, y3, then the centroid of these 3 points is, the x coordinate of the centroid is given by x1 plus x2 plus x3 divided by 3, and the y coordinate is given by y1 plus y2 plus y3 divided by 3. Okay, so let's look at our data once again, and we say for this data, that is this consists of everything. Okay, all the data points. If I want to find what is the centroid of cluster 0, what I have to do is, first I have to choose all those data points which have been assigned to cluster 0. Okay, how I can do that? I can simply say x of y equal to 0. So I'm using y is equal to 0 as a Boolean filter. Okay, what I mean to say is I have this y. Now we are saying for y is equal to 0, so I will get a series of true and false. Wherever y is equal to 0, I will have a true, otherwise I will have a false. And if I do x of this thing, then I will get a filter out of it. That means now these points that I have selected, let me do it shape. These 667 points that I have selected all belong to cluster 0. Okay. Then with y is equal to 1, 221 points belong to cluster 1. And y is equal to 2, 112 belongs to cluster 2. Okay, so this is in our first step of first iteration, we can say. Now for these all 667 values, I need to find what is their centroid. So these are all the coordinates of these 667, all the x coordinates of these 667 points, all the y coordinates. Okay, so I need to sum all these according to their columns. So I can do simply can call np.sum on it. So you do np.sum, and you say on axis 0. So when I do that, I see that all these x coordinates for y0 sum up to this value, all the y coordinates of this sum up to this value. Okay, then I have to divide it by the number of points. So the number of points is here. Sorry. Okay. When we do it for all the number of points, we end up with 2.53 as our x coordinate and this as our y coordinate. Okay, so we say that this is the net sum of this, the new centroid of all the data points belonging to class 0. Okay, so if we see earlier, what was the centroid? Earlier the centroid for class 0 was 0.5.13. This was a random centroid. Now we have moved to a new centroid based on the new assignment. Okay, so this is for class 0. Let me do for class 1 and for class 2. Okay. So these are the 3 new centroids that we have found. Okay, so that is one part. Move the centroid to the center, or to the average of the observations that we have that were assigned to. So that is that we have moved the centroids. Instead of doing this, let me put this into a function. So I put this into a function that is for create k rows and the number of features that we have. So that will be a 0 vector with 3 rows and 2 columns, and these values should be populated using this formula. Instead of we doing at y is equal to 0, 1, 2, we write y is equal to k, and we run k through 3 elements 0, 1, 2. So by doing that, we have a centroid function that gives us the centroid. Okay, so execute this and execute this and execute this. So we see that the same thing. We have the three centroids here in one matrix C. Now the next step is step 5 is basically repeat 3 and 4 again and again till we have convergence. So we say let us define convergence as the difference between 2 points C and C old, that is new centroids and old centroids. If the L2 norm between them is less than 1e minus 3, this can be a very small number, as less than 1e minus 3, we will say that we have reached convergence. Okay, so if the centroids stop moving, then we can say that we have reached convergence. Okay, so for that, let us simply create a simple function. So, okay, for which we say that I need the new centroid, I need the old centroid, and I need the threshold value. And we say that the distance between these two centroids is basically C1 minus C2, the error squared, sum of error squared. In fact, I can also do np dot square root on this. It's a square root of the sum. So basically, this is a truly distance, and we say if this distance is greater than e, okay, if this distance is greater than the error, then we return something called as true, and we return what the difference is. And if this distance is less than the error, we will return false and we solve the distance. Okay, so this I have simply created true and false so that I can write the while loop and get things done. Okay, so with this criteria and all these things, now we will put everything together so that we need to find a loop. Okay, so I start with, okay, this is, let me remove it out. These are our initial, okay, this is also not required. Okay, we start with 3, picking the value of k as 3, taking the 3 random points, getting their centroids, printing O, which are the 3 points that we are looking for. Again, this is also not important. Then I write things in a loop that will repeat step 3 and 4. But additionally, what I want to also do is I want to plot at every time. I want to plot my data so that I can see maybe as some visualization how the cluster centroids are moving from where do we initially start at random points, and at every iteration how we are assigning the different clusters, how we are moving. So for that, I'll be plotting at every step. So before we start that, I'm just plotting all the data as one go so we can see our unclustered raw data, how does it look like. Then we define a while loop with 2 conditions. As long as the flag is true and as long as we are less than 50 iterations, we will continue to do this. If any of these conditions fail, we will stop the loop. Okay. Inside this, we'll do step 3 and step 4. Step 3, get the distance of all the data points from the centroids. Once we have the distance, assign the data to the closest centroid. Step 4, now that you have assigned the data for this new data, what is the new centroid? So we find the new centroid. Then we check our condition. If the distance between the old centroid and new centroid has become greater than 0.001, okay, let me do 0.001, then okay, we will get the value of flag and E. So this will be true as long as this distance is greater than this value. So this true means this loop will keep on going. And whenever we say that this distance is less than this value, we'll get a flag of false and we'll stop. And every time we are also incrementing the iteration. So we started with iterations as 0. And if by doing this, if by 50 iterations we have not found it, again this condition will be false. So once we do that, we will print what is the present iteration number. We will print the value of true or false, and we'll print the error. And finally, within the loop, again, we will plot this data. So we are plotting the same data, scatter plot, but we are providing the color this time also. So color will come from our estimation of which how the data has been assigned. And along with that, we plot the centroids. So here we plot the centroid with the size of 100, so we can easily see what the centroid is. Additional to the centroid, we are plotting some arrow. Okay, and the hope of this arrow is it will show us from where the previous centroid has moved to the new centroid. Okay, so with all of these in place, let me. Do you have any questions before I execute this code?
Not really.
Okay, great. Then let us execute, and that is the most exciting part, to look at how this runs. So when I execute this, so we see here that our code takes 9 iterations. In the 9th iteration, it gives us a false. So 9 iterations it will take to divide the clusters. In the first case, our centroid, the distance between our initial centroid and the new is 3.9, and we see that here it goes on changing. Finally, it becomes 0. That is, it is not moving anymore. Since it is not moving anymore, the code stops. So in the first iteration, this was our unclustered raw data. And the 3 random points that we picked, one belonged to this cluster, the other 2 belong to this cluster. Okay, so that was our initial point. Then based on this cluster, we assign our data to different clusters. So you see, if you look at all these points for them, the closest reference is this guy, this centroid. And then it says all of these points, it assigns it to this cluster. Then here, the clusters again divide between 2 of them. Some of these points are closest to this one. Some of these points are closest to this cluster. So they assign these points as blue and this points as yellow. Okay. So that is our first iteration of assigning clusters. Now, once we have assigned these new data points, we have to also see how the new centroid will move. So if all these green data points belong to one cluster, their centroid moves from here to here. That means this becomes somewhere in the center. It has to be the average middle point of all the x coordinates and all the y coordinates, right? So we can see that if you take all the x coordinates, you add them up and divide by that, you will reach at here, and you will reach in between these two here, and then between this two also. So we reach here, and we can see how these clusters have moved. And since all of these guys were closer, this moves away, this moves away. So this happens in iteration 1. Okay. This also makes sense, right? You're able to understand why it is moving and why it is assigning the clusters. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's look at the next. Iteration. So now, if this becomes the new cluster, then again it has to choose what are the data points, right? So it makes the choice like this. Okay. So just look at the colors of these data. So what we are seeing is some of the top points here are in fact closest to this cluster rather than the bottom cluster. Okay. So some of these data points start getting assigned to this one, and here nothing has changed. So since these data points start getting assigned to this one, you see this cluster, it has to move a little bit on the right, a little bit on the left, so that it does justice to these data points. So as it moves a little bit to the left, now in the new data case, we will see that what it will do is probably it will try to get more part of these guys, because now it has moved a little bit on this side. Let us see what happens. As expected, our few data points have now some more data points have given their allegiance to this centroid. Thus, it moves more. Go on.
Out. But when this blue cluster moves left, our green cluster centroid has supposed to move right.
Yes, it has moved little bit, not too much, because you see, this has to do justice to this guy also. So this guy here holds it to the left. Some of the middle guys have changed, right? Had these guys changed, then we have no reason for the x coordinate to be remain here. You understand?
Yep. Yeah.
So these guys are somewhere in the middle. So even if they go, this centroid will not change too much. Okay, but slowly we will see. Slowly, as more and more these guys will get assigned to blue one. This green will ultimately, what will happen is this blue will come here. this yellow will take more of this space and this green will come here. Right? So we are seeing it happen in slow motion. Okay. So after this, we go to this point. So now, since it has got more, blue moves much faster. Since blue starts moving faster here, yellow starts capturing up this more space. Now blue moves faster again. Green has to move here because now many of the data points are it is losing support. Yellow takes up here. Next iteration, blue has almost captured here, so green has to run this side. In iteration 7, we are almost divided rightly into 3 clusters. Iteration 8, we verify that some things will change. Iteration 9, it says it is not changing anymore, so we stop. Okay. So what has happened is, even though we started out with 3 random points, which were in the wrong clusters. One was here, two were in the wrong clusters. Just after 9 iterations for all these 1,000 points, just after 9 iterations, we have now into the right, we have divided the data rightly into 3 clusters. Right? Very interesting algorithm, right? I found it very interesting because initially we don't know anything about our data. Okay. At least in this case, we are able to visualize. Just imagine if this data had been a 10-dimension data, still the algorithm would have done something like this. It would have clustered it rightly, as long as these are actually 3 clusters, right? They are separately 3 clusters. Let me show you some more runs of the same data point, same exercise. So we execute again. This time, this is our random points. We were able to do it in 7. Let us see what happened. Okay, and with 7 clusters, 7 iterations, we have divided into clusters. Yeah, and let me run it once more. Okay, so in this case, we started out, interestingly, our 3 random points are already within 3 different clusters. So then the job is really simple, and even within 2 iterations, we have our answer. I'm hoping that we find a case where we have to, okay. Yes, so this is a very bad example, right? We have all 3 clusters, all 3 random points have come into the same cluster. What happens after this point? Okay. Similar things happen, and we end up with the right clusters. Okay. So now, every time we are ending up with the right clusters, why? Because our data is actually separated rightly into 3 clusters. Let us now try to make the problem a little bit harder for our model by taking our initial clusters and not keeping it very separate, but let's make them closer to each other. Okay. So instead of having a center at 0, 0, let me have a center at 5, 0. Now when we do that, this is our cluster algorithm. Now we can still see that there are 3 clusters. This would be cluster 1, 2, and 3. Let us see if our algorithm is able to find it out. Okay. So I'll directly go to the putting it all together and I execute this. We see 7 iterations again. These are the random clustering. Iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay. So by 7, it is still doing a fairly good job in dividing the clusters. Let me try one more example. Okay, 9 iterations, and these are the individual iterations. You can see still doing a good job. Let us now try to make the problem a little bit more harder by saying that let us remove this distance also. Let us try to put them closer. So instead of 5, 0, we'll keep it 5, 0. We'll change this to 5, 2 and 5 minus 2. So this is how our data looks like. Okay. So now, even for us, if I ask any human, divide this data into 3 clusters, you could do anything, right? You could divide it into vertically 3 clusters or horizontally 3 clusters. Let's see what our algorithm does. Okay, so with these as 3 clusters, if I go to putting it all together and execute this. Okay, so it started with these 3 random points, and over iterations, it has divided this here. Cluster 0, cluster 1, cluster 2. I think it is doing a fairly good job. Let me execute this again. Okay, so after 16 iterations, again, this is the answer that we get. Okay, are you guys satisfied? Do you want to try some more examples?
No, it's good.
So, okay, let us look at a flaw of this model as well. Okay, we are looking all good things. What happens if we start this data with four k with 4 centroids? Okay, we know that this divides into 3 because we created the data using 3 centroids. But if we start with 4 centroids, let's see what it does. Okay, if we start with 4 centroids, it is taking 39 iterations. These are the initial 4 points. Let me jump to the end. Okay. So after 39 iterations, this is the clustering it has done. Now, this is not a very natural clustering, right? It seems to have randomly taken 4 sets and divided it out of the data, such that the cluster centers don't move, of course. But still, it seems pretty random. If I run this code again, so let me open this as a new image here, so that it stores what this value is. And now I'll again execute the code with 4 clusters, so that it do all iterations. Okay, 17 iterations. Okay, in the end, this is what we get. Okay, so just observe this cluster and the one that it gave the answer in the last time. We can see there are a lot of differences, right? Especially in the center part, the division between these two guys. Here is a slant like this, and here it is a slant like this. Okay. So once we start with the wrong number of clusters, it is difficult for the model to come up with a good division. Okay. That is one of the cons with KNN. So with K means that we need to know what clusters, how many number of clusters are there within the data. Okay. So this was our K-means implementation. Let's look at scikit-learn's implementation and how it is doing things. Okay. So to get scikit-learn's answer, we can, okay, first let me do it for 3. And then we'll change it to something else. So if I have K as, yeah, if I have K as 3, if we have K as 3, 17 iterations, we end up with this answer. Let's call from scikit-learn's package, we call the cluster module, and within that we call the K-means class. We create a classifier or a grouper, we will say grouper or clustering object, which saying that calling K-means, telling it how many clusters we want. So let us go with 3 clusters. What is the tolerance to use? We'll use the same tolerance as before, 0.001. How many iterations? We'll use a max iteration of 50. We'll call this group. We will fit this group with the data that we have. So group.fit. Once we just fit it, we can use groups.labels to get the different labels that it has assigned for the different clusters. And we can get group.cluster centers in C to see the cluster centers. With that information, we'll do a similar plot as we did here, so that we can see what is the answer that is given by scikit-learn. So scikit-learn also divides the 3 clusters as such. We can see that we are very similar to scikit-learn's method. of course we can then do what we say. Uh, we can compare the two labels and we can see how many are different, how many are same. One problem with this approach is, okay, scikit-learn has, our model has given 0, 1, 2. 0 as our first, yellow ones as class 0, greens as class 1, and blue as class 2. Whereas here scikit-learn has given red as class 0, green as class 1, and 2 as class blue. So this order is random, like the numbers don't mean anything, just the different clusterings matter. So we have to map what goes with what, and then we can compare our two answers and see which ones belong to the same cluster according to us and according to scikit-learn, and which numbers we have changed. But I think we'll go to that level of detail in the next class when we look at some methods, some metrics that we have that can still help us to find out what is a good cluster. Okay, even though it's difficult to say, we have a method called as Davies Bolden index, which helps us to find out if a clustering algorithm is working good or not. Okay, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, great. Maybe we can stop here for today, and we'll continue the next class on Monday morning, where we will look at some of the metrics that we can use for clustering, and we can look at one of the one example of data with with clustering algorithms, and see how it can be used for data sets, and how what does it mean, how does it work out. Okay. Okay, then I will stop sharing. We'll stop for today.